Chapter 2. Ethan Miller had always been the steady one in Layla's life, the calm in the chaos of her ambitious whirlwind. They met during her freshman year of college at a coffee shop just off campus. Layla had been struggling to carry a stack of books and her laptop, and Ethan, ever the gentleman, had swooped in to help her. "You look like you're trying to carry the whole library," he'd said with a grin as he steadied the teetering pile in her arms. Layla laughed, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "I didn't plan this very well." From that moment on, Ethan became her anchor. He was pursuing a degree in engineering, but it was his kindness and unwavering support that made him stand out. Over the years, he had been there for Layla through late-night study sessions, career decisions, and moments of self-doubt. When he proposed to her last year at the very same coffee shop where they met, it felt like the culmination of a love story that was as predictable as it was comforting. But now, predictability felt like a noose tightening around Layla's neck. Ethan wasn't oblivious. He had noticed the subtle shifts in Layla's behavior over the past few months. She was more distant. Her phone seemed to be glued to her hand, and there were nights when she'd return from the university with an energy that wasn't entirely explainable by a lecture or study session. He didn't want to believe the worst. Layla was his world, the person he had envisioned a future with. But one evening, as he was clearing the dining table after dinner, her phone buzzed on the counter. The name Daniel flashed on the screen, followed by a message, "Tonight was unforgettable." Ethan's stomach dropped. He didn't confront her immediately. Instead, he waited, his mind spinning with questions. Who was Daniel? What did he mean by tonight? As he lay awake in bed that night, staring at the ceiling while Layla slept beside him, Ethan knew he had to find out the truth. The next morning, Ethan decided to skip work. He followed Layla to campus, his heart pounding with every step. It felt wrong, invasive, but he couldn't shake the gnawing suspicion. He saw her enter a building, watched from a distance as she slipped into an office. And then he saw him, Professor Graves. The way Layla leaned in, the way Daniel's hand brushed her arm, it was enough to confirm Ethan's worst fears. That night, Ethan confronted her. "Layla," he said, his voice barely above a whisper as they sat in the living room. "Who's Daniel?" her eyes widening in shock. "Ethan, Don't lie to me," he interrupted, his voice cracking. I saw you with him." The silence that followed was deafening. Layla looked down at her hands, guilt etched across her face. "It's not what you think," she began, but Ethan cut her off again. "Not what I think? So you're not sneaking around with your professor?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." "How long?" he asked, his voice trembling. Layla hesitated. "A few months." Ethan felt like the ground beneath him had crumbled. This was the woman he had planned to marry, the woman he had trusted with his heart. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Was I not enough for you?" "It's not about that," Layla said, her voice breaking. "I don't know how to explain it. Daniel, he makes me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in so long." Ethan stood up, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "And I don't, after everything we've been through?" Layla reached for him, but he stepped back. "I need time," he said, his voice hollow. "I can't do this right now." As Ethan left the apartment that night, his heart shattered into pieces. He knew that this betrayal would change him forever. He loved Layla more than anything, but love wasn't always enough. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt untethered, adrift in a sea of anger, pain, and uncertainty. And as he drove aimlessly through the city, he couldn't help but wonder if he'd ever find his way back to the life he had once envisioned so clearly.